Of one of the biggest political movements in America isn't about Washington, D.C. at all. What if it's actually about what happens in your own backyard? Well, today we're cracking open a book called MAGA 2.0, and it lays out a blueprint for exactly that. It's all about a big shift towards something it calls local populism. And that brings up a really interesting question, one the book really dives into. Is there even a MAGA 2.0? Is the movement changing, or maybe more importantly, should it change into something totally new? And what would that even look like? All right, let's get into it. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at why the book says a redefinition is even needed. Then, and this is key, we'll compare national versus local populism. After that, we'll dig into the historical ideas behind it all, and finally, we'll get practical with a community action plan. All right, first up, the MAGA redefinition. So you got to ask, right? Why even call it a 2.0? Well, the book argues this whole idea is a direct answer to a very specific problem it sees in today's political world. According to the author, this whole new framework is born out of what they call an identity crisis. You see, the book points to this real tension between the energy of the voters on the ground and the, let's say, more traditional approach of party leaders. It's described as a kind of tug of war for the soul of the party. And here's the main critique, the real heart of the argument. The book points out a big contradiction. The whole idea is to push back against federal power, right? But the main way that's been done is by relying on a really strong top-down federal power, the presidency. The author basically says, hey, focusing so much on one person in the White House actually undermines the whole point. So that critique, it leads us right into the core idea of the entire book. It's all about making a distinction between two very different ways of thinking about populism. Okay, check this out, because this is really the whole thing in a nutshell. On one side, you have what the book calls national populism. Think top-down, everything focused on Washington, D.C., relying on that centralized leadership. But then, on the other side, you've got the proposed MAGA 2.0, which is all about local populism. This is the complete opposite. It's bottom-up, it's focused on your own community, and it's all about self-governance and decentralized action. It's a huge shift from trying to fix Washington to, well, basically ignoring it and building something new. And the whole spirit behind this pivot, the whole ethos, is wrapped up in this one phrase you see over and over in the book: no permission needed. Seriously, it's this idea that people should just get together and solve their own local problems without waiting for some politician or bureaucrat hundreds of miles away to give them the green light. So, you might be thinking, is this a brand new idea? Where does this stuff even come from? Well, the book is pretty clear that it's not trying to invent anything new here. Instead, it's all about going back, way back, to a very specific set of historical and philosophical roots. And those roots, they're planted firmly in the political philosophy of Thomas Jefferson. I mean, the whole framework is built on his ideas. The book makes the case that this vision of a decentralized America made up of self-governing communities isn't a new plan at all. It's a direct revival of what Jefferson wanted for the country. The author even has a name for this idea, Jeffersonian America. But look, it's not about a specific time in history. It's a concept. It describes a nation where power flows from the bottom up. It starts with you, with individuals, with local communities. It doesn't trickle down from some huge federal government. And according to the author's take on Jefferson, this whole model stands on three main pillars. First up is individual liberty, the idea that freedom is something to be protected, not handed out by the government. Second, you've got state sovereignty, which acts as a check on federal power. And third, the big one, self-governance. The idea that people, citizens, are actually responsible for running their own communities. Okay, so that's the what and the why. The critique of the old way and the philosophy behind the new one. But how do you actually do it? How do you turn all these big ideas into something real? Well, that brings us to the practical part of the blueprint, the actual how-to guide. The book lays out this simple four-step cycle for taking action right where you live. It's a pretty straightforward process. Step 1, educate. You learn about the issues, you talk to your neighbors. Step 2, advocate. You actually push for change with your local leaders. 3, organize. You form community groups. And finally, step 4, mobilize. You get those groups working together to make things happen. And we're talking about really concrete local stuff here. The book gives a ton of examples. This isn't about grand national campaigns. Nope. It's about showing up at school board meetings, partnering with your local and state officials, maybe even starting MAGA 2.0 clubs. It's about using your local government to pass resolutions or push back against federal rules. The focus is just laser sharp on the local level. And you can see this whole philosophy is really a flat-out rejection of the idea that Washington is where change happens. I mean, the author basically says, the system is broken, period, and that trying to fix it from the inside is a waste of time. The only real path forward, according to this blueprint, is to just go around it, to build new ways of governing from the ground up, starting in your own town. And that's really what it all boils down to. The book leaves us with this massive question. It's making the case for a pretty radical change in strategy, shifting from a national, top-down movement to something totally decentralized and bottom-up. So the final question it really makes you ask is this: does real, lasting change come from winning power in Washington, or does it come from making Washington irrelevant, by building something new from the outside in?
Yeah. I was going to share it.
You need the mic.
Go ahead.
It's all right. Just don't give me this. Okay, that gives a nice summary. It's on YouTube and whatever, and anyone that wants it, as Angie was going to share it, and I turned it off, but
We'll find
it's
it
there. This happens in our midst, and we don't even know it. It's invisible. And we're fortunate today to have with us Sue Chilton. Oh, the mic, sorry. Sue Chilton. Jim and Sue are in the book, chapter 17. And it was my honor to write that chapter about what they did, what they're doing, and really the legacy that they're leaving for all of us in terms of so many things. Jim, unfortunately, got ill, and I think he's on the mend. I hope he is.
Yes.
Good.
Well,
But
that's
Sue's
where I
here.
left it.
But Sue's here to talk to us about what she did with Jim. And they really represent so much of what this book is about. But more, you know, and it's very important what they accomplished, but most important is they did it. They said, no way are we going to accept this situation. In other words, they didn't need permission from some authority. Sue, come on. You want to stand there? What would you like to do? What's
I
this?
already told him I wasn't going to talk.
I know.
For all good that did. Well, back in about 1995, the Center for Biological Diversity, that is the Center for Biological Absurdity, you get it? Okay, went after us over grazing in an area that should be for resurrecting the Sonora chub, which is a fish, and you can do it just about as well in the parking lot out here, because this is a dry wash. Okay, how many fish do you know about that do well in a dry wash? No, it runs when we have, it's an Arizona wash, you know. It runs during big rainstorms that are focused on that watershed. Well, we fought them. To make a long story short, we won the battle. I won both punitive damages and some of the cost of our lawyers, not all, but some portion. Well, they crawled under a rock for a period of time because the Forest Service knew what reality was, that we're part of a managed grazing program that coordinates with them heavily, Natural Resource Conservation Service and all. Anyway, so Center for Biological Diversity crawled in the cave and licked their wounds because we got them for $500,000, which did not cover the lawyers because we had to go through a trial, first a full trial, and then appeal that, and then they said, then appeal it to the state Supreme Court. The state Supreme Court turned them down, and then they were going to appeal to the United States Supreme Court, you know. And they said, we won't if you give us another $35,000, they said to our lawyer. And Jim told the lawyer, you all know what the Soror sign is? Think about that for a minute. Okay. Okay. All right. Anyway, so that was the end of that for a while. Then during Biden, guess what happened? Back they came with the same proposition. They added a couple other species, but the Sonora chub on us, the same fish that they were going to revive in this wash that only flows when it rains. Now, how long should it take an agency to figure out that that's ridiculous? Well, during previous administrations, the agency didn't care if it was ridiculous, because the objective was to get ranchers off the land. During this administration, the agency does care.
Yeah.
So we are in the case again with the same people, but this time the Forest Service and Fish and Wildlife were on their side. So we'll see what happens. They may drop it, seeing what the opposition is, because we've submitted data. They have claims, but they have no data. So we had data. That's another long story. Anyway, Jim has been driving this, because now the lawsuit is not just against us. It's 177 border allotments.
Oh, shit.
And the center knows that most people, when faced with a major lawsuit and with the requirement to hire a lawyer, they just roll over, okay? Well, SACPA, that's Southern Arizona Cattle Growers Protective Association, of which Jim is a past president, and there are other good people in it. They're more in line with our let's fight these sons of guns, and they have gone for a lawyer, and they are backing the agencies. So anyway, to make a long story short, here we are back again. But I honestly think that one such of those battles yesterday is why Jim, the bug that was chasing him, caught him, because it was just like, he is 86. I'm 83. So the vision of going through all of this again is just, you know, it's a little daunting. But here we are, and here he is, and he led the fight before, and now he's got some other people who, in the next generation, are picking up the reins and doing some stuff. Nonetheless, it is stressful. Yeah. So, anyway, that's
The thing about it is that it's invisible to most folks. They don't know what's going on, and they don't have any idea really what the bureaucracy is all about. And the chapter on 17 really illustrates that, and just touches the surface of it, but it does go into it. But there's a blueprint also at the back of that chapter, talking about what you can do in your own area of interest. And as we get to the conclusion here, I'm sorry that that video took as long as it did, but it is a good, I think it gives a nice summary. But there are four parts to the book, and the first part deals with rediscovering Jeffersonian America. In other words, what is this thing, Jeffersonian America? And the reason we don't know it is because it's not taught anywhere. It's not taught anywhere. You know, the people that write the books, write the history, are the winners. Well, in 1860, the country changed. We had a civil war. And the basic thinking over that civil war is, does the federal government, the central government, control basically everything? Or do we stay with the compact that the states put together? Remember, the states created the country. And you would think that if you created something and you were involved with that, then you would have some say in terms of what's going to happen. Well, we fought a war over that, and it was very little had to do with slavery, to be honest with you, because slavery and the whole issue of slavery was very pronounced in the North as well, which most people forget. And so the first part of the book deals with discovering Jefferson And it would be fine if that was it, but again, at the end of every chapter is a blueprint on what to do. The next part looks at turning Jeffersonian principles into action. And that part talks about, all right, what did Jefferson do? What did the Republican Party do at that time that Jefferson primarily put together, which is very different than the Republican Party today? And again, blueprints at the end of every chapter. The third part deals with building Jeffersonian power. Jeffersonian power in our local communities. And again, blueprints on that. And the final part deals with restoring Jeffersonian America. And it's not an either or. It's not an either or, but it does suggest that we need to go back and take a look at what Jefferson believed in, how it was turned into action, how we can gain power from it, and how we restore it today. Again, blueprints. And as I look through this, and I spent a lot of time trying to figure out, well, why isn't this happening if it's such a great idea? You know, if I think this is such a great idea, am I just nuts? I'm not crazy, but am I just nuts? And my thinking was, no, it's that we've been so conditioned to believe that we can't do anything. And the fact of the matter is, if the government keeps giving us this and that, and a few bits and pieces here and there, well, it kind of puts us to sleep. And we've got to wake up. And I know you've heard that, but the reality comes down to it is every single day we lose our liberty. And like that frog that's in the pot that's boiling, you just slowly turn up the heat. By the time it gets to the boiling, we're gone. And I'm not sure what we do. I don't have any great message. But I do know this, if we don't do something, as I said, and we don't do it at the community level, we're lost. Because as Jefferson said when we started looking at this, hey, the federal government's doing all of these things that we don't like. I'm talking about Trump now, I'm talking about the federal government, rules, regulations, taxes. And then we say to the federal government, fix it. They're not going to fix it. They caused it. Why would they fix it? That's like saying, give us your power. You know, if we wouldn't have a stop in the Homeland Security now, if they didn't get their salaries. You know, if Congress didn't get their salaries, didn't get their health care, didn't get their chauffeurs, and everything else, we know there would be no stop. Or if the group that they represent, people on welfare, we're not getting their welfare checks, their food stamps, then we know things would start, you know, it wouldn't happen. So those are the four parts to the book, and that's how the book is organized there. I want to, in conclusion, I want to read to you a couple of things very quickly. When the book was finished, I had it all done, sent to the publisher, everything.
What page are you on?
Pardon me?
What page
What
are
page are
you
you
on?
on?
What page am I on?
That you're gonna read? Because I wanna read along.
You want to what?
I wanna read along with you.
Oh, no, okay, well, I'm not there yet.
Oh,
No.
okay.
I was
Page.
I'm much more organized than I am, Angie. It's on page 505,
Okay.
and it's dealing with Charlie Kirk.
Oh.
As I indicated, that the book was all finished and everything, and then his assassination. And I said to myself, regardless of what, I've got to put something in there in the appendix, and I did. And to be very honest with you, I believe that the most important thing that we can do is reflect. We don't need to answer so quickly to anything. We don't need to make a decision so fast. We need to reflect. And that means get along, think about what's taking place. Are we right? Are we wrong? The tragedies that we deal with in our life, the great things we deal with in our life. Reflection is important, and this book is about that. It's reflecting on who we are as a people. And to be very honest with you, I thought Charlie Kirk was, an interesting man. He was doing interesting things. Some people know I wasn't the biggest fan of him for a lot of reasons. It had nothing to do with his spiritual beliefs or anything like that. It's just, hey. And then I was reading about him, read his couple things he wrote, reflected, and I realized at that point that he was not who I thought he was. And so this last little paragraph here I wrote, and I'd like to read it to you. And it's titled it's on page 3505, his legacy. And I say, Charlie Kirk may never have become the leader of a nation, but in a deeper sense, he embodied Jefferson's highest ideal, the empowered citizen. And it is this ideal that reframes the real question we face. Not whether one man can save the republic, but whether enough citizens can relearn the habit of governing themselves. Charlie Kirk showed that a citizen armed with conviction and tempered by civility can awaken a nation. His example reminds us that America's renewal will not flow from one authority, but from thousands of citizens